At Battery Bill, we power everything by battery. It's not if an emergency happens, but when. Are you ready? Be prepared for this hurricane season. Having backup power ready for these necessities, home, refrigerator, and phone are essential for peace of mind to have uninterrupted power during an emergency. Do you need an affordable, reliable backup power solution? We have it. Goal Zero, Jackery, and EcoFlow. Reliable, innovative, and affordable. Power when you need it. Battery Bill, Mapuna-Puna, Nimitz, and Hilo. Battery Bill.
All right, how's it going, everybody? We welcome you into episode 110. That's right, we've hit 110 episodes now on Hawaii Football Now. Jordan Helly, Hunter Hughes with you. Back for another week on the production side is our guy, Jaron, as well. We record this Wednesday, October 4th. It's just after 7 a.m. Hawaii time. It is a bye week for the University of Hawaii and probably couldn't have come soon enough for the Rainbow Warriors as they limp in at 2-4. We'll get into their latest result on the road in Vegas here as we move throughout the pod. But want to say a big mahalo to Spectrum Mobile, Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill for sponsoring this episode. All right, little opening drive time. Hunter was actually in Vegas. We talked to him last week. He was already up there. But he hadn't necessarily called the game yet, right? Was working the sideline for our ESPN Honolulu broadcast. And of course, working with John and Mark Veneri. Hunter, how was Vegas overall? How was the Allegiant experience? I assume that was the first time you had gone to the stadium. I've driven by it several times, but never actually gone into the building. How was the trip to the Ninth Island overall?
Yeah, that was the first time that I hadn't stayed on like the north side of the strip, away from kind of the gaudy MGM Grand, the Aria, the Caesars and the Bellagio. Like that's usually what I think of with Vegas. And then, Vacations Hawaii brought up ESPN Honolulu, and we stayed at the Cal, and I got to see just how local Vegas can get. That was the first time I've seen any of that. Real kind of reverse culture shock for me, where you can walk out of, like for instance, the Golden Nugget, which is right near the Cal, and things can be popping off, and they're playing Usher. And then you walk into the Cal and you hear Robert Casamero on the PA, and aunties and uncles are everywhere that the eye can see on slot machines and trying their luck over at the craps table, and you see the massive gold chains. I mean, I'm like, how am I back in Hawaii? Have I stumbled back into some alternate dimension that I didn't know a casino existed in the islands, but apparently it does. So I think about that first of all. Like that was a terrific experience. There was a Nakoa event where they brought together tons of former players all the way back to like the 70s. And that was the Friday before Saturday's game. That was my first experience ever being a part of a Nakoa event for alumni as a former player. And so John Ursua and I were the only quote unquote young guys that attended. But at the same time, we loved it because we're shaking hands with guys that, I mean, I'll admit, Jordan, you would probably know who a lot of those people were. First time I got to shake hands with Jesse Sapolu, Phil Sims, is that, or I don't know if that's his first name, but Landon Sims' dad.
Yeah, Travis Sims.
Travis Sims, thank you. And a handful of others. For me, I got well versed in kind of the history of Hawaii football. I'm not from here. And so really soaked up that opportunity as well to see some guys that don't always get a chance to come all the way out to our islands, but it's much easier for them to come to Vegas and kind of be around that University of Hawaii family again. So that was super cool. And then game day environment, bro. Getting to be on the field at Allegiant was like one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of, to be honest. That thing is impressive. Top to bottom, architecturally, that thing is a marvel. You said you drove by it. It looks like a spaceship when you drive by it.
Yeah, it looks like a Death Star.
Totally. It just decided to come down to earth and it's just there now. The security and organization was actually done by the Raiders on the inner workings of the stadium. So it's not like volunteer UNLV staff is takes over the stadium or anything like that. Like top to bottom, it felt like an NFL stadium that you walked in there. You had to show media credential when you walked in, before you use the bathroom, before you use the elevator. Someone touches the button on the elevator. It was top notch. It was pretty cool. I just wish the boys could have got it done, Jordan.
Yeah, I think that kind of sums it up, right? Everything leading up to the game, I think, 2 thumbs up. Knew some folks that went up to the game, and anytime you can, like Vegas, as you talked about, right? The Cal, it's a different experience. It's really cool. I remember going when I was like 21, went to school in LA, drove over. A couple of my buddies played actually at UNLV, went to both UNLV UH football games when I was in college, as they kind of alternated years, even when they were not in the same conference. At Old Sam Boyd, went to watch my buddy play, and a couple of the buddies. But yeah, you go downtown, man. Anytime you're gonna run into 25 people in the first like 30 minutes. You go downtown during Hawaii football week when they're in Vegas. It is overload, right? Like the Cal orders extra oxtail for oxtail soup anytime it's Hawaii UNLV week. And so everything leading up to the game, we'll get into the game here in just a second, but it kind of got me thinking, as you mentioned, right? Vegas is sort of the perfect opportunity due to logistics to get all of those alums together, right? It'd be great if you could do it on a wall. It'd be great if you could do it on campus for a week or whatever, right? Homecoming, alumni weekend, things like that. But it's hard, right? A lot of those alums live on the mainland. It's a long flight. You got to take time off of your work, wait for whatever. We get it. But Vegas is a nice sort of central meeting point for a lot of the Rainbow Warrior alums, right? And as you mentioned, a chance to meet some of these guys and to talk story. And that, I think, is sort of those are the bones of the program, right? Are the players. And that's what has made this program special. I mean, you're talking about Super Bowl champions like Jesse Sapolu, right? You're talking about dudes who have been on some of the greatest teams in University of Hawaii history, and Travis Sims. And that's what we lack in facilities, what we lack in funding the University of Hawaii football program. That is what the program lacks in terms of just all of the other nice things it makes up for in people, I think.
Yeah.
And the network that exists there, the tight-knit nature of it, the brotherhood aspect of it, right, which isn't just confined to this year's iteration or the Timmy Chang era that like dates back, right? And that includes everybody. And so it kind of got me thinking, because one of the things that came up during the closure of Aloha Stadium, basically, right? It was like, oh boy, where's Hawaii going to play? Are they going to play at Mililani High School? Are they going to have to fly to Maui to play games at War Memorial Stadium? Are they going to play on campus at Ching? Which ultimately was the case, and kudos to David Matlin and his guys for getting that thing retrofitted in record time. But then one of the other options that people threw out was, they're going to go play home games in Vegas. Like, are they going to they're going to take the band on the road often, or even some of the home games in Vegas, right? And it kind of just got me thinking, because, as wonderful an experience it is every other year to go up to play UNLV and to kind of make it a reunion weekend, to make it a big fundraising weekend, to make it a nice little reward trip, right? Players' families go, wives and spouses and partners of players or of coaches go, right? Like it's a wonderful time. You know, and we talked about it last week a little bit as well, or it was a couple weeks ago, right? Craig Angelis and his thoughts on scheduling and how that's all going to work out. But it's like, hey, maybe they should look at playing a game in Vegas every year. Make it like a neutral site early season kickoff type game or something like that, right? Vegas is hosting all kinds of neutral site events. BYU's playing games there. And maybe yeah, you got to end up sacrificing a home game or something like that, or maybe you can convince one of those Power 5 schools to go play a neutral site game there, figure out some corporate sponsorships, you make some money off of it. It's great for recruiting, obviously, right? With the pipeline that they've established with Bishop Gorman, you want to be an everyday presence there as much as you can. But it just, it kind of seems like something that we should try to do every year instead of every other year. It just seems like the benefits of the football program being in Las Vegas and everything that it brings. Should try to maximize that. I don't know. Just got me thinking, Hunter.
So it's very ironic that you're talking about this right now. I had two different conversations with Craig Angelis during our week in Vegas, having to do with exactly what you're talking about. The first one was on Friday during that NACOA event. He came over and was a guest on Off the Bench while we were recording in the NACOA event. And say what you will about the guy, I appreciate his candor. He's not afraid of letting something out of the bag, even if he's still working on it. It's not necessarily as rehearsed or scripted. Like, even if he's just in the lab on something, I really appreciate it. But he brought up the fact that he has been working and has been in talks with not only opposing athletic directors, but Allegiant Stadium to play our home opener next year against Oregon at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas.
Oh, interesting.
So they are actually working on making that happen right now. And the reason why, he broke it down like this. So of our 15,300 seat stadium at TC Ching Athletic Complex, when you take away seats that are needed for the opposing team, seats that are needed for our team, players, coaches, sponsors, you get roughly around to the 11,000 mark. So in a best case scenario, the most amount of seats that you can expect to sell is only about 11,000. And so to recoup the losses that inevitably will come when you can't sell out some of those lower tier games, like this year, the UAlbany game or the New Mexico State game, where you're maybe not going to get, garner a huge audience. He's looking for creative solutions to kind of offset those losses, and believes, because Oregon travels so well, that they can hopefully fill 50,000 in Allegiant. That was what he told us.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, right? That'd be a great road trip for them. Frankly, right, if you're one of those Power 5 programs, you'd love to play there as opposed to, Ching. Not trying to knock it, but it's just kind of a reality. And athletic director Angelis kind of talked a little bit about it, right? Usually you bring in the big Power 5 programs, that's a little increased gate, you make a little bit of money, and that obviously is capped by the limitations of the facility that they play in now, where you're not going to be able to realize that bump nearly as much as you would when they used to play at Aloha Stadium. So I get it. And maybe that's a draw in recruiting too, right? Like, you want to play at home for sure, but as long as you can still get your 6 home games, I think that's a big deal. You play a neutral site game and 6 road games, and obviously that neutral site game is going to be a 7th road trip. Hey guys, you come here, you're gonna play once a year at Allegiant, probably on national television against a quality opponent that's got to appeal to guys that are coming from Vegas, recruits, right? Bishop Gorman. Maybe some years we play there twice because we play a little neutral site kickoff game, and then we play UNLV every other year, right? I'm not mistaken, I believe UNLV is one of those 3 protected matchups for Hawaii that
He
they
also
play every
said,
year in the rotation.
yeah, no, they are. Them and San Diego State are our 2
No, 2
designated.
protected. Yeah, sorry. Hawaii's the
Yeah.
3rd. Yeah.
He said there's a chance that every time we play UNLV, we just do it in Vegas.
Interesting. That would,
So
yeah.
it's again, I think it was all kind of just conjecture at this point. But certainly I took it as optimistic. This guy's looking for creative ways for our program to make money. From an athletic program overall perspective, you need the profits from football to offset the losses from the other sports. So that's just how it is organized. And so I don't fault him at all, kind of for looking at things this way. And before we get into the game and just the perception of the team, I also wanted to bring up, I talked with him game time down on the field level, and he was kind of asking about the rivalry between us and UNLV and what it was like as a player against those guys. And I kind of let him know the rivalry between UNLV and us in the past is kind of just more marketing. It's kind of for administrative people to worry about, like player to player. We really never had all that much beef against UNLV, and I was just kind of being transparent with him. And I was just kind of watching him, and he was just kind of taking it all in and asking very good questions. And it felt to me like a guy still ingesting, still getting to know this program, getting to know University of Hawaii, and experiencing the Ninth Island kind of for the first time. And so I bring all that up to say, I don't know if him and the other, administrative people within University of Hawaii are quite at a point, nor should they, of making executive decisions on this football team or the football staff. We're in the middle of a rebuild, and I think it was a good kind of perspective giver for me on, okay, he understands that it's still going to take a little bit of time. That was what I kind of observed in hanging out with him this last trip.
Yeah, that's really interesting and great insight. And we'll probably have to get him on the pod at some point to talk a little bit more about this as we go forward. It's a big discussion, and it's one that I think will be fun to have and probably we'll revisit as we go throughout the season. But yeah, some little nuggets there planted maybe going forward. All right, let's transition here. Let's get to the game. Let's get to the UNLV contest. But first, we want to remind you that Hawaii Football Now is brought to you by Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union. As Hawaii's largest credit union, they are committed to serving individuals and businesses through its 14 branch locations statewide and convenient digital banking services. As a leader in providing support for the islands, Hawaii USA is committed to strengthening Hawaii's financial wellness and sharing successes with members, local businesses, and the greater community. Visit hawaiiusafcu.com. All right, game time here on episode 110. Hawaii fallen in Vegas, dropping to 2-4 here in 2023. They relinquished the Golden Pineapple Trophy, a little lighter in the luggage coming back home. UNLV defeating the Bows 44-20. UNLV covers the 10.5 point favorites. The total goes over 58.5. Hawaii now 2-3-1 against the spread, and the over now 3-3 on the season. Hawaii now 0-9 on the road over the past 2 years in the Timmy Chang era. All right, Hunter, your observations there. You were down field side. It was another slow start, another poor performance against the run, another game where Braden Shager's probably got a few bumps and bruises, got a little bust up once again, sacked 5-6 times. I got it down here in my notes, 6 times. That's now 25 total in 6 games. Not great, but your observations, my friend.
Yeah, to that last point you just made, we did the math yesterday. If you take the attempts Braden has thrown against the QB pressures or hits in the pocket, he's literally getting hit every other play. 50% of the time he gets hit. That is a tough environment to stand in there and make quality throws. Before I talk about anything else, I think it's also important to remind people Braden's number 4 in the entire country in passing yards still.
Yeah.
Hard to believe that our team can't get it in the end zone with those kind of passing yards, but I do think it's important to throw out there that this offense is doing what it was marketed to do, move the ball. I think I don't know if it's maturity of this team, execution, or what, of being able to just get it into the end zone. But my observation on the sideline was, man, we're close. There were a couple of plays in that first half that had they been landed, we might have had a completely different football game on our hands, Jordan. I mean, you're now a football coach. It really comes down to maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 plays that can swing a game. And that fade route to Pefeli Ashlock in the first half that was overthrown to him, and then the one in the end zone to Stephen McBride, for those watching at home, it would have been to your right. Overthrew him in the end zone, just over his fingertips. If we land both of those, we go into the half, if not winning, tied for sure against UNLV, and it's a much different story second half, where it felt too little too late, where they kind of ran away from it. So I take that kind of with a grain of salt, because it feels like we're close. It doesn't feel like this team is just awful or doesn't stand a chance against a team like UNLV. We fought hard. Of the 6 sacks that Braden took, it easily could have been 8. He fought through a couple of guys that were on top of him. One in particular where he stepped up in the pocket with a guy on his shoulders and got the ball out to Carson Papunu in space. Felt like a phenomenal play to me. A great effort there. On defense, I felt like it wasn't our best performance, but also UNLV was stacked and threw a lot at us. Similar to that Stanford game where they would line up in multiple different formations and we didn't really know what to do with ourselves. They had that kind of alternative power I. Jordan, I don't know if you saw that, but QB, fullback, halfback, all next to each other.
Little sidecar formation.
I mean,
is what I've seen the kids call it.
Oh man. And then
I don't know if Brennan calls it sidecar formation, but I've seen some coaches, some of the guys that break down film on Twitter and Instagram and stuff.
I like that. Sidecar. That's cool.
Yeah, I do too. They also ran the heck out of it.
Not only, yeah, and so much that they could run from it. I mean, they ran power I stuff from it. They ran option. They ran end around, sweep, pre-snap motion. It confusing the heck out of any defense that you go up against. So I kind of throw that in there to kind of just weigh it all. Also, they were huge. UNLV, you can tell that they are profiting from the aid of a team like the Raiders at their disposal. And over the weekend, the Raiders donated $1 million to their athletic program. So just a corporate partner in a professional football team like that can really help a college team recruit. And I stood there going, why can't a UNLV team be an elite group of 5 school? I'm kind of getting away from UH, but I wanted to kind of throw that in there because it felt like they had the makings of a UCF from a few years ago, or a Cincinnati from a few years ago, a Houston. Why can't UNLV be one of those? It felt like that in the making, Jordan. But Yeah, I think there's a lot of positives to take from Hawaii. It just felt like when you're going up against one of the better teams in our conference, because let's face it, outside of Fresno, Air Force, that next tier of teams, whether it be a Boise, a Wyoming, UNLV is right up there, kind of chomping at the bit for a chance against the Fresnos and the Air Forces to take a shot at this conference. So if we want to beat one of those teams, we had to play our best, and they needed to kind of make some mistakes, and neither of which really happened.
Yeah, that's a good football team. I think Barry Odom's done a terrific job in his first year and upping the recruiting a little bit and kind of taking advantage of some of those recruits that Tony Sanchez has brought in. I think Brandon Marion's a wonderful offensive coordinator, and that was him at William and Mary. Was kind of relegated to just coaching receivers when he was here in his 1 year at the University of Hawaii. But it's like, man, did he have all this in his bag of tricks? Because Hawaii wasn't running this when he was here that 1 year. That is a program that is trending very much in the right direction.
Big time.
I think the question for them, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but how long is Barry Odom there if he keeps winning? Somebody's going to come calling. And then also for Brennan Marion, I think, if it's not a head coaching job someplace, like there is a Power 5 school that needs an offensive coordinator that puts up these kind of results. And what he is doing.
Yeah. Other than the Michigan game, they've scored 40 a game this season.
40 a game. Yeah. 40 a game. And Michigan was 35-7. It wasn't some embarrassing result. They are on track. They are on track for sure. They run for over 300 yards, 307 to be exact. Hawaii runs it for 46 in the ball game. Shager throws for 313 on 22 of 35 passing, had the one interception. UNLV doesn't throw it a ton. Only had one passing touchdown coming in. They get two, of course, against the University of Hawaii. 142 yards through the air. Jaden Mayaba, former Kaimuki quarterback, finished up at Liberty in Vegas. Henderson doing a really nice job. But yeah, 449 yards of offense. They averaged 6.5 yards per rush, 6.8 yards per play in this ball game. Just terrific. Hawaii ends up with 359 yards of total offense. And to your point, Hunter, 5.9 yards per play. Like they moved the ball, but they only averaged 22 points a game. And that's therein lies, I think, the crux of things, right? Is how do they get in position to start putting more points on the board? I mean, even there in the second half, right? It would have kind of been probably an inconsequential touchdown. And I thought the interception hit the ground, but they're on the one, right? And they should have got 7 more. And maybe it's a little more respectable at 44-27 or something like that. But they should have scored there, right? Yeah. But they don't ultimately, and maybe they were on the wrong end of a bad call. But they still ultimately don't get the score. Hawaii penalty-wise, a little bit better in this ball game than we have seen in games past. Last game was, I thought, really solid against New Mexico State. 6 for 65, some boneheaded plays late where frustrations kind of boiled over. That added to that total there, but just the lack of early game production, right? 20-3 at halftime. Hawaii actually outscored UNLV in the third quarter, cut it to 10 twice, to 20-10 and 30-20 before those final 2 touchdowns kind of put this game on ice. But the slow starts just keep dooming them, and the defense didn't play great, but it's hard to ask them to keep holding on, right? When you're putting up 3.5. In the last 2 games, and then expect to kind of flip the switch like they did against New Mexico State. Like that's just not going to happen every week, when you really break it down. And so they got to figure out a way to start faster. That's been sort of the death nail for this team, and just find a way to put points on the board, because you've got guys putting up some impressive statistical numbers, but how does that translate to points? And you talked a little bit about it, Hunter, a little more maturity. A little bit of maybe killer instinct and trying to just get it there, being a little more efficient down in the red zone, and then of course I think the big part, the lack of a reliable running game, not necessarily a hugely productive running game, but just a reliable running game, right? Maybe one of the bright spots, Tylen Hines probably looked as effective as he has this season. What do you have in this one? 9 for 43 on the ground, averaging 4.8. We can get into some of the individual numbers here before we take a a little halftime break. But yeah, those slow starts, Hunter, are just, it's hard, man. It's hard to swim upstream. It's hard to run uphill every single week.
Yeah, and I want to bring up one play for everyone to kind of just look at when we look at maybe why our offense isn't quite clicking. Whenever we want to blame everything on the quarterback or blame it on the O-line. There was I think this was in the it's either second or third quarter. We're driving. It was like on the 40-yard line, and wanted to hit Pefeli Ashlock on an outbreaking route, and the throw looked like it was behind him. But if you rewatch the film, and I could see it from the sideline, it was zone coverage, and Pefeli Ashlock was running this way. Braden was trying to throw him into this space. And again, Pefeli Ashlock's he's had a great year this year, but he's only a redshirt freshman. It's his first time in the run and shoot offense. He needs to sit in that empty zone right there. And if he does, he might turn around and score a touchdown. It's not all on one player. It's not all on play calling or execution. Sometimes, like, it's everything together, where that was the right play call. That was the right throw. It wasn't quite executed on that play by the receiver. And so I think just kind of across the board, it feels like that, where maybe of the three things you need for it all to work, maybe we got two of them. And so I don't know what it's going to take, but it feels like it couldn't come at a better time this bye week to try to get that third piece in order.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, hold that thought. We'll talk a little bit of the bye week and maybe get into some of the individual numbers from this past weekend as well. Quick little halftime here on episode 110. More Hawaii Football Now coming your way.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
All right, back here on Hawaii Football Now, episode 110. Jordan and Hunter with you. All right, wrapping up some of the UNLV discussion, and then we'll kind of close out the podcast talking about the bye week. No opponent this weekend. San Diego State coming to town Saturday, October 14th. Some of the bright spots here, Hunter, maybe we talked a little bit about Tylan Hines. We talked Braden Shager's numbers, ended up throwing for 2 touchdowns as well, over 300 yards once again. Hines 9 rushes, 43 yards. Jordan Johnson 7 carries for 33 yards. Landon Sims had 1 for 12. Dalen Morris got in there a little bit. I like what they were trying to do with him and some of those short yardage. It's been a little less productive than maybe we saw in the beginning of the season. He goes 2 carries for 2 yards. Najee Bryant, the late little cameo late, 1 carry for 2 yards. And then in the receiving game, right, Stephen McBride, another monster game, 6 for 180 and the touchdown on a little bit of trickeration. Alex Perry catches a touchdown on his only grab for 38 yards. Nick Senecal getting a little more involved, 3 for 27. Ashlock 4 for 26. Kawali Nishigaya 2 for 20. And then Carson Pupunu, Tamatoa Mokiao, Ati Malala, and Jordan Johnson all with a catch apiece. Jalen Smith getting a lot more run there with some injuries at that linebacking core. He was credited with 10 tackles. Isaiah Tufanga also credited with 10 tackles in this ball game. Caleb Brown had a big game, 3 pass breakups, graded out really highly by Pro Football Focus. You lose by 24. You're down by 17 at halftime. So it's a little tough. Some injuries mounting up as well. We can get into that here in just a second. But any other bright spots for you, Hunter, that you got to see while being down there field side?
I'm glad you brought up Caleb Brown. I was standing next to former players Ika Mokeke and Kalen Hicks. I don't know if you remember them. They were my teammates.
Gorman guys.
Both are Gorman guys, and we're in town. So they were on sideline. Coach Chris Brown got them sideline access, and they told me, like, hey, check out Caleb Brown. And we were just watching him. And there was one play in the first half that he actually baited Maiava to throwing at him. And when Maiava let the ball go, Caleb Brown had his back to the ball, made a break on it and almost picked the ball off. Like, had we gotten that play and stolen a possession, again, I consider that one of those 5 plays that could have turned the tide of the game for us. Thought he played fantastic in a game where we were without Verdell Edwards. He was there, but in kind of an ankle boot on the sideline. And Cam Stone didn't have his best game. So it was some slack that needed to be picked up. And Caleb Brown kind of established himself as another elite DB for us. So I was super impressed with him.
Yeah, I like what he's bringing to the table, right? The junior college transfer. He's rangy out there, and we're seeing a lot of guys get opportunities on that defensive side of the football, and obviously they need to be better against the run. All right, let's close it out with a little discussion on the bye week. We've already talked about it coming at a pretty opportune time, basically the midway point of the season. 6 down, 7 to go for this group. All 7 will be Mountain West Conference games. For you, Hunter, what's kind of the focus got to be here for this team as they lick their wounds a little bit, get healthy, but also need to clean some things up going into that San Diego State matchup on the 14th.
Yeah, this team is banged up physically. I think just on the offensive side of the football, like we desperately need Jonah Pinoque back for his leadership, for his dependability on the outside. This last week, Alex Perry suffered a concussion during that UNLV game too, so he'll be in concussion protocol. Hopefully he can get back. Beyond physically beaten up, this team feels emotionally just beaten up and down. And that's also the benefit of a bye week. You can kind of use it as an opportunity to kind of wipe the slate clean. And that's kind of the way that I'd be looking at it. If I was Coach Timmy Chang, I would kind of just dismiss the guys for almost this whole first week. As long as they didn't get in trouble, get your mind off of football a little bit. Almost, that was the first half of season. Let's get reset. And now we got second half to play right now. Because the mood on the sideline is not good right now. There is not a lot of juice. There's not a lot of joy. Not a lot of excitement for football right now. And I've seen it return. I've seen it kind of reinvigorated in a team. But this breath of fresh air, I think, couldn't have come at a better time for this group.
Yeah, it's important to kind of get a fresh start, I think, if you will. One thing I kind of wanted to ask you about, right, obviously is the pass protection. And we can talk a little bit more next week as well when we get into kind of the matchups with the Aztecs. But, as you pointed out, well, not just the 25 sacks or whatever that number was, but the pressures, like Braden Shager's getting hit a lot. How much of that is on the offensive line? How much of that is on Shager just having to get the ball out? What are some remedies? I'm not saying they're going to all of a sudden, turn into, the greatest offensive line unit we've ever seen. But are there any sort of fixes, things that can help, things that Shager can do to help, things that play calling can do to help going forward?
Yeah, to that question, if hurries are on the O-line, or if it's on Shager, or if it's on the play calling, the answer is yes. It's a little bit of everything. I think you could probably make a case for the blame to kind of be shared across the board right now. One of the best ways of not getting hit is getting rid of the ball quickly. Best way of getting rid of the ball quickly is having shorter routes, taking the hitch. That's one of my favorite things to bring up to you, Jordan, on the sideline is, man, we can throw that hitch all day long if we want to take it. And, this last game, UNLV was weak in their secondary. And so they were wanting to try to get the ball out there into that second level. And so with that, you're talking, you have to protect Braden at least for 3 steps and potentially 1 hitch. So, wow, even as I'm saying that might even be a good reason why he was overthrowing guys. Usually on go routes, our timing as quarterbacks is 3 steps, 2 hitches, let it fly. And so if you're letting it go on 3 and 1 hitch, and Shager has a big arm, that would be a reason why that ball is being overthrown on those guys, because they're just not there yet. Wow, I haven't even thought about that till right now. But that's a really good perspective lender right there, because if the timing is not quite right, they're not going to catch the ball. I think across the board, RJ Hollis said it beautifully on his kind of recap of the game with Rich Miano and Rob DeMello on Monday. Across the board, offense, defense, special teams, everybody can get better. So this bye week, I think everybody needs to take a good, long, candid look at themselves and say, how can I get better and help this team win?
It's got to be a collective effort for sure. It's not just going to fall on the offensive line or anything like that. They have to be better. And I think silver lining, obviously it's disappointing when you go up to UNLV and you lose like that, and kind of get your butts kicked in the trenches against a team that is a bit of a measuring stick, a bit of a look in the mirror type of moment with these two programs where they have been over the course of their respective histories. But I do think silver lining, and you touched on this earlier, of the 7 opponents remaining for the University of Hawaii, I really don't think anyone outside of Air Force, maybe Wyoming, who's got the win over Texas Tech, is as good as UNLV. Like, I think the Rebels are really good. I think they're going to contend. And the other teams on the schedule, right? New Mexico, Nevada, even though both are on the road. Colorado State's improved. They're better than they were last year, but you get them at home. San Diego State's not what they were. Still solid, but they don't score a ton of points, and so that should keep opponents in the game. Like, I think UNLV is better than San Diego State. So that's just my point. Of the 7 remaining, maybe 2, maybe 1 is as good, if not better. I think Air Force is really good as UNLV.
And San Jose is not what we thought they were either.
Yeah, San Jose is the other opponent. Yeah, they're not. They're 1-4, I think, on the season. Right? It's played some tough games, Oregon State, USC, but they're not what they've been. And you get them at home as well, right? In that emotional sort of return for Shevin Cordero. So, yeah, there's can they win 4 out of the next 3? I think, to get you to 6 and 7, possibly a bowl berth. I think that's obviously a huge goal at this point. But some improvement over the last 7 games is going to be big. And kudos to the Hawaii Sports Information Department. Neil, Derek, and the guys. Sobering stat here: Hawaii now 28-61 all time in the Mountain West, including 12-32 on the road in MWC play. Not great, but a chance to get better here over the last 7 games of the season. Hunter, wanted to close out on this. Some semi-breaking news. The NCAA Division I Council has been meeting this week. And a lot coming out in terms of football and Division I sports overall. And we can get into a little bit more of this next week. But one of the big ones, and saw Nicole Auerbach tweeting this out first. Nicole of The Athletic now, I think. Just wanted to get that correct. One of the lead college football reporters. One of the things that came out, Division I membership requirements. There are a whole bunch of other stuff that has to do with transfer portal window, that has to do with max number of scholarships you can hand out per class. That's been removed. Division I Council also adopted changes to membership requirements for football bowl subdivision schools. Eliminate attendance requirements at FBS schools immediately. That obviously is of interest to us. They increased the transition fee to go from FCS to FBS. And then the other big one is requiring all FBS programs to provide 90% of the total number of allowable scholarships over a 2-year rolling period across 16 sports, including football. FBS schools were required to fund 210 scholarships per year. I have no idea how that factors into the University of Hawaii in terms of scholarships. And they have to amount to no less than $6 million annually, effective August 2027. So some time to digest that a little bit. But the big one, no attendance requirements. So that's something that Hawaii will potentially not have to worry about. That's big.
The Lord. That is big news.
Yeah, and this just coming across in the last 10 minutes via the Twitter space.
Wow.
Yeah.
Woo! Sounds like a lifeline, Jordan.
Yeah, and it was waived the last 2 years because of COVID, and quite frankly hadn't really been enforced kind of ever. And so, you know, it's nice to not have hanging over the program's head, if you will.
That one item in particular is so inconsistent and arguable. You watch a home UCLA game at the Coliseum, there's like no one there. So that's a big school like UCLA. But I'm just bringing that up because not all D1 football programs are created equal in terms of home attendance numbers. So I think that's really good news, and specifically really good news for Hawaii.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about more of that next week, I am sure. But just wanted to put that out there as kind of saw it come across Twitter just now. As everybody will now listen to this tomorrow when our podcast releases. But I'm sure we'll get a little more news, a little more clarity in how all of those rule changes affect the University of Hawaii football program as well as the athletic department as a whole. All right, that'll do it for us here on episode 110. We'll be back next week to preview that San Diego State game and the rest of the season, really, as the Bows now sit at 2-4 through 6 games in 2023. Big thanks to Spectrum Mobile, Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill, our sponsors on our humble podcast here. Big thanks to Hunter and Jaron as well, the studs of the podcast, if you will. All right, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helly and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.